Yes, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Pete Paris. I'd like to call this meeting to order. It's approximately 3:12. I'd like to start out by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You
got those minutes?
I got some minutes here. Has everybody had a chance to want to take a couple minutes to look at them? Anybody got any questions or comments?
No, one thing to ask is the authority to sign these assignments. Which assignments?
I didn't understand that. What
This
is
is
this?
just on number 6.
Right.
So it's a cooperative agreement between the Department of Agriculture and Wildlife Services. And so when he's referencing the director, he's referencing myself. But part of the park responsibility is to be involved in that conversation, review of those cooperative agreements, so on and so forth. So this, in the past, the director hasn't had that conversation other than maybe when he went to the Cattlemen's Convention and the Wool Growers Convention, where this brings it up in public and basically we're able to discuss it. And then if Wool Growers has some concerns, or Farm Bureau, or you, or livestock producers, then those concerns can be voiced as we move forward with signing cooperatives here every year.
Thank you.
You bet. Are there any other discussions or comments on the minutes? Or do we have a motion to?
Have we had public comment already? I'm sorry, I missed
That's
it.
it.
Public comment.
Oh, we did skip public comment, yes.
We just need a-
We jumped ahead of it.
Okay, but would we approve the minutes before we went to public comment?
Actually, we're required to do public comment before any action items, and approving the minutes is an action
So we
item.
guys put
Oh,
that
so public comment should have been in front of reviewing.
Yeah,
the
that's
minutes.
right.
And I thought they corrected that on the second draft, but it's not gonna be do it right.
Oh, good, as long as it wasn't my error.
We'll just ask for it now.
Are there any public comments?
Sure we have any public.
Well, I'm not hearing any public comments. I recommend that we go back to the review of the minutes of the previous meeting of April 9th, 2014.
Is Bevan on the line too?
No, Kevin's not. Just Grant.
Grant, you still with us?
Yes, I am. I haven't seen a copy of the minutes. It must be if there's a meeting. I haven't seen a copy myself yet.
Would you want them read to you or something, but there's not a lot of activity on them?
they're pretty much what we discussed in that meeting, Grant, but, I can have a copy of them sent to you, like, right now, if you would like.
I think, unless I'm a deciding vote, and I will just abstain for the approval of the minutes since I haven't actually seen them.
Okay? You're not deciding vote, we've got plenty.
Okay, and if somebody did give me a copy of them emailed, that's fine, I can look at them when I get it.
I'll work on it right now.
So we're just
You
gonna,
just need a mission, yeah, or a motion, yeah, see if board will do a motion.
so do we have a motion to have these minutes approved? Boyd, would you like to do that?
I'd love to move that we accept the minutes.
Is there a second somewhere?
Because they stepped out, we don't have a second board member, unless Grant will do it.
Grant, can you second it for us? Or no, he's abstaining.
Oh, that's right.
We'll have to wait a minute for a board member to come back to second the
Here
minute.
you go.
That's okay. We're hoping you can give us a second on the approval of the minutes.
Second.
We've got a motion and it's been seconded. Can we, all in favor?
Aye.
Boyd? All in favor?
Aye.
All, any nays? Okay, I suggest the minutes are approved then. I'll, the decision. Alright, the next item on the agenda will be the Agriculture and Wildlife Service Cooperative Funding. I've had another Western State District Supervisor. We have Jack Spencer Jr. here for discussion.
I think we handed out, you guys should have received an email that showed all the states in the west, throughout the west. Copy of it.
Copies of this here. Dr. Song.
I do have this.
Oh, you do that?
Okay.
Yeah.
It just shows what cooperatives have come to contribute into the agency through sheep head tax, cattle head tax, miscellaneous throughout the states. Everybody got that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Should have been in your email, Grant.
Yes, I do have it.
Okay.
So if
And
there's any,
then Boyd should have a copy of it too.
You didn't include Nevada's on this?
Don't we have it in there?
Oh, yes.
And remote, yeah.
and it, you know, it's pretty self-explanatory, but some of it is, you know, what, through the ag department funds, some of them through the game departments, some of them are counties. You know, Nevada's not really big on the counties' contributions. Say like Oregon or some of these other states or Utah. And, you know, over to the right, it does show what the cost is per sheep per head. Usually that's enacted back, a lot of these were back in the 50s, I believe, in Nevada. I think it was 51, looking at some of these records when the sheep head tax came about, the voluntary head tax. It goes down and it shows the cost for each state. Some of these states aren't on here. I don't see California and some of these other ones, but it does show Nevada, what we get, and that money through the Department of Agriculture funds, some of that I believe, that 536 is, that employs the state through the general fund, that employs trappers in the field. I believe there's 5 state trappers. The 440, the game and fish funds, I think that's been reduced quite a little bit, but that's for the predator application fee when you apply for game takes. Nothing from the counties. Sheep, 20 cents a head. I think that comes out to, I'm not sure what it equals, but it's about 68, 70,000 sheep in the state.
I think last year was over closer to 90.
Was it?
85,000 is what we have as total number.
Well, it was up a little bit.
Maybe down a little bit this year. I see some of them, Fred and some of these folks that sold.
Did Fred sell all of this year?
Maybe then you go down here at the bottom, if there's any states that you can look at, and they have, you know, what stuff associated with them. What stuff? These are those. It's kind of creative if you look at this, for any government entity. You have a voluntary sheep head tax, self-imposed by wool growers. And some of them will have, from fleece sales of wool, certain percentage, cattle, head tax, some of it with the county, so it is quite creative what each state does.
Looks like Wyoming is the big one. You got $1 a head on sheep and $1 a head on cow.
I will say the Wyoming Department of Ag also then has through their state wildlife agency a pretty good depredation payment back to the producers when livestock are taken with multiples. So example is if you have a wolf that takes a calf or it takes a lamb, you have a different multiplier, and I can't remember which is which, but I want to say on the calf one it was like ×7. You can show that one of them was taken by a wolf, then, and I think the Department of Wildlife and the Wildlife Services, either one can go verify the kill and make the declaration, then the producer has a ×7 on the wolf on the cattle part payment of the, what would have been the mature value of the livestock. And then on sheep, almost looks like 20 or something like that, is the multiplier, some significant number, because the assumption is that if they find one, this is how many they didn't find. So if you found 3, then it's a 3 × 7 or whatever. So Wyoming does have very,
Liberal compensation.
yeah, thank you, good word. Kind of focus on those funds. Now, is it Idaho? I've heard on the news recently is Wildlife Services connected to their wolf depredation program or their wolf predator program? Because I had heard
They are, they
something.
work very closely hand in hand together. In fact, I was up in Idaho in Challis with the Game and Fish Department and Wildlife Services and the wolf coordinator there. But I can't speak for what it is and what it's not. But I will say that they were joined, the wolf has brought the game department and Wildlife Services together. They're joined at the hip, and they are in this together.
Hello.
Evan, we're joining you.
When I was driving through Elko on
Yeah.
Monday, I was listening to the AM radio station out of Boise, and they were running anti-funding campaigns, the wolf protection groups or whatever, because they had funded the control of wolves at $400,000 in general fund or something. And so there was, that's the only reason that I knew that or that I thought. So I knew they were obviously engaged heavily in the program.
Yeah, it's quite interesting too, is how these develop, why they develop. I mean, my family's been doing this since 1897, it's a biological survey. They raise sheep during that same time. You get a new animal in a state that does a lot of things, some good, some bad. But in Idaho, once they got the wolves, and you know, nobody should say it's a good thing, but it's brought now a game department and an agency together, it's brought funding in there. And as you say, it's given a liberal compensation for some of that. However, Idaho, being one of the first, was, you know, they had a lot of boundaries and a lot of hoops to go through and a lot of fights to go through and a lot of lawsuits and not getting paid and people, you know, losing stuff and perhaps some of our big game animals. So it's been a struggle to have those. So it's, you know, if you look at the history, there's like Washington, for example. Washington, they basically quit the predator program, but now they've come back in there and it gets to a point where, well, cattle may only be 1 to 2% lost to coyotes per year. So with the program not in place and with coyote populations expanding and getting more bold and more aggressive and, you know, not being trapped or harvested, they find that number goes up and up and up. So even though Washington doesn't show it, there's been a recent move to get aerial hunting and aircraft around cattle areas because they're getting inundated with coyotes.
Does anybody know why Washington moved away from the program, and do you know that, Jack, or?
You know, Washington is one of the biggest programs.
Oh, really?
They have a tremendous amount of work, but it's birds, alien species, starlings. They got a fish program, and that's where the money goes.
Huh.
You know, and they were directed that, you know, if this money dries up, I think some of it has to do with trapping issues. I think they have a 24-hour trap check.
Okay.
Or maybe it's legal. Don't quote me on it, but see, now I'm thinking, you can't use legal traps in Washington.
Right.
I'm not sure. But if you see a lot of states where they take that away, they take that tool away, or tools, straps and snares. You see a lot of that where we kind of go with that, so then they went in a different direction. Same as Alaska. We have a program in Alaska that's very diverse, but they don't do anything with predators other than foxes out on the Aleutian Islands. On the mainland, they don't have black bears or brown bears. It's not what you would think it would be.
Yeah, Bevan's on there.
Are you on there now, Bevan?
Yeah, I made it finally.
Grant, we still got you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a hard time hearing at times, it cuts in and out. I don't know what the issue is there.
Okay, well, we'll try and do better. Speak up a little more or something.
Do you have any questions, Bevan? We had, went through the minutes and, they've been approved as written. Do you have a copy of those minutes?
I can get those to Bevan, I'll just send them to Grant.
Yeah, I thought I had them, and I'm looking through my email right now, and I can't find them. So
You're gonna have them in
me
a
and technology are warring here this afternoon. So
still B-lister, right?
yeah, B-lister 8.
Okay, I'm gonna email them to you right now.
Okay.
Those minutes have been approved. Do you want us to wait a minute and have a look at them, or are you happy?
No, I've looked at them before, and I was fine with them.
Okay. And could you hear Jack then on his last, presentation there?
I just got the last few minutes.
So are you happy with it? Everything? Can we keep going, or?
Yeah,
Any questions?
absolutely. It's my bad for being late getting on. So.
Have any more input on that?
Yeah, if there's any questions, I mean, I can't go through each state and look at them, it's pretty self-explanatory, but I'm just saying, is if you look at it and you see these funding structures, they're pretty complex and creative of what they've come up with to get funding.
Do you have any questions, Boyd?
I don't think so. Just one confirmation. The only money that this committee has any control over would be the 20 cents on the sheet per head, right?
Yeah, and this is Jim Barbie for the record. That's correct, and that's basically a recommendation, because ultimately the Board of Agriculture has the final voting authority. The approval authority, I guess.
Okay, that's all I have, thanks.
Well, if nobody has any more questions on that issue, we'll move to item number 6 on an update on the sage grouse protection in Nevada, and Supervisor Jack Spencer will you can make a presentation on that too.
One of the things with the sage grouse is that,
You might have to speak up. I think
Yeah,
some of those guys are.
yeah, the appointment this way. We've got a bunch of projects that we're doing throughout the state, especially in the east. They're doing a lot of raven removal around some of these sage grouse leks. In the west, we're doing a project, let me back up a bit. We're doing some of these other projects for NDOW. The results that they publish in the Nevada Department of Wildlife fiscal year 2014 predation management plan. And that's the results, what they come up with. However they obtain those, through different ways, I guess. But in the west, USGS has been doing a project in the Virginia mountains, and they've been documenting with cameras, miniature cameras, put on radio collared female grouse. And in the past 4 years, I don't know what the results are. The previous 3, I believe they're in this plan. But last year they had an 82.4% of the nests were hit by mammalian and avian predators, but primarily documented was the ravens. And this was pretty self-explanatory. It's hard to argue with cameras set on trail on a nest. And I believe he's got some photos of it in there.
And that was a combined cooperative study that included you guys, NDOW.
No, we don't. We do operations, we don't do the research. But it was mainly USGS, because they're kind of the neutral base, kind of for NDOW.
Gotcha.
And they collaborate together. But it was mainly by Dr.
But you guys were doing the work on the ground.
Yeah, so they have, these years of data that show, what was going on. This year we went in there, I had one of my specialists go in there, we removed ravens. And again, everything preliminary, I want to be careful about the sage-grouse stuff, but we're seeing some pretty good positive signs. But some of these are hard to obtain success if you're not out there every day.
Right.
In fact, it's extremely hard, and I don't know how, a lot of it can be done, but this one, with people on the ground, we're working close with researchers. Hey, we got nests here, we've got ravens in certain areas, but as far as removing ravens, we were quite successful.
Was that a targeted increase in the number of ravens that were removed? I mean, it's focused on that study area?
It was all in that study area. And some of those, again, I'm not going to get specific numbers, but I know that some of their data, they were showing in one spot, they would find a grouse nest and they would look. For 10 minutes, they'd count the number of ravens. And some of those numbers were well over 100. So in 10 minutes, they counted 100 ravens. Some were none. Some were 20, 30. It was quite a number. Now, during the last month, and during the height of the sage-grouse nesting season, we were going in there seeing 4 to 6 ravens in a week. And we were very successful to suppress that. So right now, looking at the numbers again, from what one of the researchers told me the other day, it was actually pretty good. Probably it's looking like around that 58% mark. But again, they have to finalize that. Successful versus unsuccessful.
When will the results of that study, or do they have any kind of idea when that's going to be released?
3 to 4 years, 5 years, a long time from now, I would imagine.
Before even the steps of that, because we had a release on some of this data, 6 months ago, 8 months ago, 10 months ago?
I think it'll all come out. I think it's going to come out as soon as they can make it available, but it's still going to say preliminary. It's not going to be,
Yeah, but that's better than nothing.
I think it's a good start. So it's kind of the results that I expected to see. We're basically taking the ravens removal. You're still going to have coyotes hit them. You're still going to have this, but it's going to be more of a natural 50-60% of the nest hatch. No, that's not chicks. We're only protecting eggs.
Eggs, right.
How about, is there any increases in the front for more permits to get more numbers?
I don't believe so. I think that number thing is always going to be there. You got 190,000 ravens, and you're taking 2,000 ravens.
We did draw attention to that, and actually Mark Jensen was there and presented to our last Sagebrush Eco Council meeting, and draw attention to the difference in the raven numbers over the last, I want to say it was 3 years. They went from 100 to 191,000, somewhere in there.
Probably 120 to 190.
Yeah, significant.
That's not our data. That's using kind of the latest available studies.
Exactly. And then basically talking about the general number used is you can take 5% of that population with permits, which would be well above the permit number that we're currently taking. And then it was also commented on why can we take 10% of the sage grouse for hunting and only 5% of the ravens to protect the sage grouse, was one of the things that was drawn attention to. And then as well, they, I believe, if I remember correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, Devin, I think they also had asked why, what Fish and Wildlife Service's plan was to deal with the raven, as that bird is specifically under their authority and affecting another species that could be listed as on the endangered species list, being sage grouse. And Ted wasn't there, so they basically said they were going to get back to that question. So it is, the raven part is a heated conversation piece on the sagebrush ecosystem.
Yeah, so basically we're just protecting eggs in a few spots with $20,000. So that's kind of where it comes down to. We're not really protecting sage grouse, we're trying to get some nests to hatch.
And that's a $20,000 investment?
I think on that
Right.
one, 20 is what they did.
Has anybody got any questions to Jack on this discussion?
Jack, I have one question on the study itself. What was the name of, you gave a name of the NDOW's 2014 study. Did you have a name for that?
Who's doing the study?
Yeah, did you have was there a title for the study or not?
Virginia Mountain.
Yeah, it's in here, it should be Virginia Mountains Project, Sage Grouse Project.
Okay.
And I can get you a link to what they released, I want to say it was 6 to 8 months ago on the study. They did a preliminary release that I think correct me Jack if I'm wrong, you know more about it, but talked about the previous 5 years.
I want to say at least 4.
Okay, somewhere in there, and I can get you a link to that. Boyd, I'll send it out to everyone after the meeting.
It's with USGS.
I think the concern that I have right now is that you mentioned that it might be 4 to 5 years before that study's completed and the results might be published. By that time, the Fish and Wildlife Service will have already made their decisions and set their regulations into place and everything into motion. And currently, as they're moving, would lack little, if any, raven control in their risk evaluation. I know it just seems like we need to maybe start using some of the preliminary data earlier to put pressure on the Fish and Wildlife Service, because I think left to their own devices, they'll totally ignore that aspect of the population depression in the sage grouse, basically in their habitat.
Yeah, 4 years is a long time to wait for a species that's just about there with, the political stuff of it, but I try to stay out of it. But I agree with you, I mean, I always say it is what it is.
I think maybe another question I might have on that study itself, do you have any idea if the rangeland was considered to have adequate cover and they still had that level of depredation, or was it, of course, that's if Virginia Mountains is probably where the Virginia range horses are, it may have been kind of nuked, as far as any kind of cover. Is that described in the study, the preliminary data?
Boyd, this is Flint Wright for the record. The Virginia mountains that Jack is referencing is North Washoe. It's not the same as the Virginia Range Hills out here east of Reno.
Okay, so it's in northern Washoe County then?
Yeah, it's in northern Washoe County.
Still has
Okay, excuse me.
I don't know, you can take.
Yeah, the Department of Ag doesn't own it.
Yeah, I mean, I see hundreds of them out there, but boy, it does have all that in there, and very, very specific and very in detail. But I will say one thing, just being there, a lot of people would say stuff and talk about sage grouse, but I help put out eggs. I take this very serious, and I spend a lot of days out there. There's a lot of these grouse were nesting in areas that were just crazy. And you walk up there, and they're just beautiful brush, 10 feet away, and they're sitting right out in the open with their mouth open, sitting in the sun. Unbelievable. Time and time and time again. And I've heard them researchers comment on that it's just all the places they could go. Why? Right out in the open. And I've seen that in other studies when Dr. Pete Coates used to work for me. They just nest where they nest, and it's just crazy. You do all this stuff, and they're sitting out on a bald hillside next to some bunch grass. Time and time again. Several of those this year were the same way.
Jack, would you extrapolate in your feelings that perhaps Fish and Wildlife's contention that adequate habitat or adequate cover will take care of all of our raven problems? Would you question that?
You know, I don't wanna get in this habitat versus predator stuff because it's both. But it's.
Well, I think their contention is that if the habitat is good enough, there's enough cover, it doesn't matter how many predators are out there. And I question that personally. I just curious if, you know, from what you're saying, it sounds like maybe just habitat improvement, or if, you know, if there's improvement to be made, will take care of our predator problems, you know. So I think, you know where I'm going. I'm saying that, you know, if cows are grazing grass and they're saying we need more grass for cover and we won't have to have any problems with ravens that way. That's the road I'm going down. And I question, you know, I think that bird's smart enough. They're going to find those nests and watch the hens coming off those nests, and they're going to attack those nests no matter what. I don't care how heavy the grass cover is or the brush cover.
Yeah, it's a tough deal, you know. Again, I kind of outspoken. That's why they don't see me in these meetings, because I'm out in the field. I like looking at stuff, but it's, if you look at it, I can't imagine any highly intelligent, mobile, long-lived species that's doubled in population and doubled in population and doubled in population hundreds of times could not have an adverse effect on something. If we were talking about cows, if we were talking about horses doubling, I mean, think about doubling Reno and doubling.
I think we are on the horses issue.
It's just any animal, good or bad. And yet, if you look at it in just the numbers, I mean, think about that, if we doubled our deer population, then we start getting millions, and this is, you know, you hear a lot of this where it's, you know, 300 or 600%. If you start looking at some of this old literature back in the 60s, it gets in some of these areas and studies that were done, especially by Bill Borman, where they said, well, in this area we had a 6,800% increase in raven. You know, you look at some of this data, and it's quite phenomenal, because you know, we're looking back the last 10 years or 20 years or 30 years. I just can't, you know, for me personally, again, not for the agency, but I mean, and I think everybody can agree, if you take something and double it and double it and double it and just keep growing and growing, how could it not have an adverse effect, not only on one species, but a multitude of species, whether it's livestock or whether it's wildlife?
Do we see these trends in other states, or only are unique to us?
For the raven?
For the raven or any other species, like,
Well,
are we consistent with the rest of the states?
Pick a species, let's say pigs in Texas. You know, we have none, and then we have some, and then we have millions. And it's just, some of these animals benefit, you know, from, they're being protected. So if you protect something, it's the same as, you know, driving over here, I see coyotes in town. You know, if you protect them and harbor them and feed them, whatever they're eating on, natural or
I think his question was on the ravens themselves, correct?
Just the ravens.
And I do think they're increasing
Everywhere, like
all western states.
Yeah, it's some areas more so than others, but right now when talking with Pete, Central California, the valley, is just full of ravens. You would not see hardly any resources. You're seeing a lot of ravens. So it'll have effect, and it's just not sage grouse. They can do this to, you know, a wide variety of other species, nesting ducks.
And one of the questions I think was asked to Mark, and I can't remember what his response, so I'll ask it. The population in the valley in California does affect Nevada, for sure the bi-state, but isn't that correct? I thought he said that they can travel. I mean, they can maybe they hatch out over there, they feed over there, and then they migrate and move.
And any of these foods, you know, these birds they're migratory. That's why they're protected under the 1918 Migratory Bird Treaty Act. They can go south and eat pistachios and Pahrump. They can go out and eat Mormon crickets in Elko County, and they can move so many places. And it's nothing for a raven to get up and go. I was watching them the other day going from a military base in California, flying, two guys with radios. We watched them fly all the way to the unit. So they can go a long way. So when we're talking about, you know, these ravens, yeah, they may be going from all over. And California, sure, I'm sure they do.
Going back to your comment, Boyd, a minute ago about hiding the eggs. I've worked with wildlife services several times. You can't even you can't hide those eggs from them birds, because they try to spread them out and hide them a little bit, so one bird don't eat all of the treated eggs that we're trying to get rid of them. You can't hide an egg from them birds. It's like, they're better than kids at Easter time.
You can see them about 400 yards. Picots, not published data. But we are seeing ravens pass from one place to another place. And we have green fields. And we put eggs out just as with a rangefinder back in the, it's been 15 years ago. And we were watching them fly this path every day, pattern them while they were doing surveys. And they would break off of their pattern, fly right to them eggs. Just right to them. Yeah, I mean, if they can see a white egg at 400 yards, they can see a nest, you know. But hopefully the results, like I said, Boyd, I'll try to get it out as much as I can until they don't let me use it, but I'll have to, even our newsletter and some of this stuff, I'm hoping they'll allow us to use it, to get the word out.
Well, I'm going to extrapolate your answer then to my question is that, do you think that just habitat improvement will take care of our raven problem? And I'm hearing, and tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm hearing that you think perhaps that's not true.
Yeah, Mark will kill me if I tell you what I really think, but possible.
Okay, thank you.
This is Devin. I have a question.
Go ahead, Devin.
In the protocol for the study, has there been any, is there part of the post-treatment monitoring to look at either chick numbers or juvenile numbers later in the season, or is it just on the nests only?
No, and again, that's out of my realm, but I will say they're staying on them. They follow it, once that hen hatches, they're still following the female with chicks. For example, a female had 8 chicks the other day, and they went and they said, yeah, she still got all 8. They had another one that had about 7, and she only had 1 left. So they're gonna follow them until they basically die. Year round, I believe, on it.
The study, whoever's doing the study is gonna follow that nest or that group of birds.
As best as they can. It's pretty hard to, when these birds disperse and they don't have collars on them, you can't put collars on chicks, obviously, but they'll at least know, usually with sage grouse, if they can make it, much like any animal, if they can make it through their first 6 weeks of life, they usually got them. And for sage grouse, if they can make it through their first 6 weeks of life, they have a very good chance of making it.
Right.
So
that's why I was wondering if that was part of the study protocol, and if it is, that's excellent. That'll be good information to know.
It is, it'd be excellent information to know, and they are doing it. I know that they were going into July, watching those chicks, and then after that, it's pretty tough to keep them together.
Sure, yeah, okay, thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else got any questions for Jack? Guess it's okay to move on to the next agenda item then, which is number 7, the PARC NRS financial review. How PARC is funded, i.e. head tax, et cetera. Do you want to take care of that?
Yeah, I can hit that with the budget. I did have one question, and this ties to that, but also back to the form that Jack shared with us, sorry. Jack, in that document, you show $440,000 in funding from the Fish and Game Department, or NDOW, in Nevada. The reality is that they're actually funding up to, just as a clarification, $306,000, which they don't actually usually fund all of that. Through that predator management plan, you guys are usually around 200-something thousand.
And that's
our question.
It is, and I didn't, specifics, I try to be very.
That's all good.
I was saying it's 440, but it's really,
it's much less than that.
Much less, and I didn't want to throw a number, but I think in the deal it'll say what projects were approved and
And I'll,
Significantly lower.
and in the fund piece, but so that we didn't look like we were telling two different stories, in the fund piece, I'll talk about that, the why and that, some of the concerns that we have on that budget specifically. In the 2012 actual and the 2013 work program, the appropriations in general funds for this program was $488,000 and $495,000. I grabbed my budget proposed. I didn't grab my budget final, so this $536,000 may be accurate. We'd gone into the budget with a recommendation of $762,000, followed by $785,000. And ultimately, what that basically funds on the state side is 7 state employees that work under the authority of Wildlife Services and directly report to Mark and Jack and their staff in the field and the projects that they're working on. One of the difficulties that we have, and then that follows with the wool growers money is listed in here at $12,906 was the projected budgeted money for 14 and for 15. And then the transfer from wildlife is $414,000, so that's the total resource available. Now, what happens is, the reality is the $14,000 comes over as a straight support to Wildlife Services. That leaves $400,000 in resources. When you get into their projects output budget, or what they're budgeted to expend at a max, is $306,000 on the endow projects or predator reduction. What that does is creates an instantaneous $94,000 budget shortfall. We've addressed this with the budget office every year that I've been in the position, and my assumption is, based on what I know from conversations with Mark, is they've also identified it as an issue previously. It looks like we'll be going back to the interim finance committee and asking for funds on that shortfall again this year, which, because it's budgeted, I don't see how we're not going to be doing it in FY15 as well, without making drastic cuts that would reduce the capacity for them to do anything with those state funds. We are requesting and will continue to request to have this budget issue resolved in the next legislative session. But basically, you've got a $1.1 million from the state budget side budgeted amount of money to be expended. The concerns I have, and what I really appreciate in terms of Jack and Wildlife Services providing us with some of these other state examples, is we're going to have to start looking at how we can diversify how we fund this program, because it's becoming, specifically for the livestock side, it's becoming a very difficult conversation with the legislature to support the general fund amount that's going to support the program currently. We try to target and specifically sell it from the basis of animal disease, because these guys, when they're in their field, they're taking samples that are processed through our state animal disease laboratory, and of course the animal disease can transfer for zoonotic diseases, that can affect the human population. It also gives us the capacity to track animal disease across the state, both to benefit human and livestock industries. But we're definitely going to have to put our thinking caps on and regarding how we portray this budget and defend it, because it's a harder and harder sell, with more of the legislators being urban centered and urban focused, that general fund money should be going to the program. Without general fund, we have to go to something that's more fee-based. Currently, the only reflected fee that we have is that $12,000 or so from wool growers, And, you know, that's obviously not gonna be enough it's really not enough currently to make much of a impact, but we're gonna do everything we can with it. I will say that on the agency side, we're looking, and we've been talking to, and I don't know if Mark shared this with you, creative ways that we can reduce their expenditure side on the state piece. Currently, they contract their vehicles through the federal government contract, and what we're trying to identify is, can we put some of these guys, like we do in our brand inspectors, into highway patrol vehicles that have 100,000 miles on them, and let them run them to 180,000 miles, let's say, and over a 3-year basis. We can get those trucks for $7,500, and then we're just paying state fuel costs on them, rather than, and I'm trying to remember, I think the cost on a federal rig is upwards around $10,000 a year per vehicle.
I would say that would be
Ish, yeah. And so by doing the 75 and deferring that over 3 years, then we've reduced that expense that we're taking on that account. That's not ideal, and I know that Mark has some concerns about it in terms of he doesn't want his guys, you know, out there in high mileage vehicles, but if they're state guys, that's what we're having to do on the state side with all our other programs to make it work. That's just one example, but there's no doubt that this is, you know, some hurdles. And on the comments relative to the NDOW budget, since we have a wildlife commissioner on the call as well, so you clearly understand, NDOW and Department of Ag are absolutely on the same page relative to this budget. And I have emails where we're both trying to convince the budget office that this last session in March 2013 it is broken, and that $94,000 gap is budgeted into it that we're going to hit every year. And NDOW's been real supportive that that isn't budgeted correctly, and trying to, I think we have it worked out this time. I'm hoping that it's going to be proposed correctly as we build the budget in the next few months. Very hopeful, but I don't know why that's been such an issue, but for 3 years I haven't been able to convince anybody. I feel like I'm standing, when I say I mean NDOW as well. We've both been chiming in that this doesn't work. The beneficial part for NDOW is they don't have to be the one at the table making the pitch in the IFC for general fund contingency money. So anyway. So that's kind of how it's funded, and then you have the entire federal side of wildlife services, and I know that Mark provides that breakout at each one of the state conferences each year at Wool Growers and at Cattlemen's, but there's significant federal money that is expended, upwards of pushing, I think, around $2 million. I'm doing by memory, Jack, if I'm way off, but I think it's around $2 million in federal money that supports wildlife services. There's north of there.
Yeah, from everything from pigs to disease.
Right.
Some of it is
Overall,
certain specific
right.
things, not just people. Airports.
So, answering the second bullet point under 7, we're trying to figure out unique ways to use the resources that we have to shortfall the general fund gap. I think we're going to have an uphill pitch in getting increased general fund. I think the battle is going to be defending the general fund that we're getting and keeping that at the level it is just by the perception. As I'm worked through, and you guys have seen me at different times defending the budget, if I'm missing big picture items that ought to be selling on wildlife services, please help me. You know, Mark's been good about helping me that way, and, you know, talking about the disease control and those kind of things to focus on the how it affects the general citizen overall. But it's just a hard pitch, and I mean, that's why, and it's not unique to wildlife services either. Our budgets right now, we're less than 2% general fund, this agency is. And we've shifted those general funds directly to things that we can specifically defend, like the animal disease laboratory in terms of citizenry health. But, you know, and we've moved it away from places that we feel like we're having a more difficult time defending, and this is definitely the one that we're having a hard time with right now.
I'm really surprised that at this time and age that we share with animals a lot of diseases.
Right.
And if we hope to keep ourselves healthier, we need to take care of animals' health. And that is wildlife and domestic animals. And I think this is probably, I don't know of the word best, but I think this is the right time to ask for more money, because so many diseases are really coming from animals. And just I want to give you an old example and a new example. The old example is West Nile virus. Animals were predictors to what will happen to us. We used to observe animals, and I worked with many of your staff.
Right.
When it appears in birds, because first the vector control will check on positive mosquito pools. When it appears in mosquito pools as positive, we give ourselves 2 weeks to get the first human case. And if it appears in mammals and horses, and now the horses are not very good predictor because of the vaccine.
Right.
But horses were a week before the first case. So if we want to protect ourselves from many diseases, not only West Nile virus, even the flu, we need to take care of animals' health. And now...
Well, welcome to the table. I'm so happy you're here because we've needed someone that you know, I think we're looked upon in that budget process by the legislators as agriculturists that are just basically defending this agriculture. I say those things to those committees, but they don't carry the weight of significance like someone like yourself saying that. So we may be looking for your help to at least validate what we're saying is
It's very true. Again, we share this environment with other living things, and their health and our health are...
History tells us for thousands of years that.
And just like in 2012, we have this emerging infection from coronavirus called this Middle Eastern respiratory syndrome. And they really are highly suspecting a reservoir, which would be camels. And where did the camels get them? From bats. And honestly, I work really closely with your staff, because when somebody calls me and tells me, oh, I have an animal bite, can you tell me what is the rabies level in your state? And I am with confidence telling them that where that bite occurred can tell me if the animal could have had rabies or not. If it's in the south, most probably I would be scared in the area of Arizona and Las Vegas. If it's in the north. So my issue is really, I think that I don't know who separated our health, but I think animals' health is our health, because we are the primates among animals. And I think really that we shouldn't separate it to start with. I don't know why it was separated.
Right.
Hopefully when Jim needs somebody, a legislator with him as the right-hand man, we can pick you.
Get you to come represent the committee or the public in terms of the issues. And I think this speaks volumes to, this is a conversation that Pete and I were having before the meeting started, is the relevance of this committee and its importance, and is it relevant and is it important? But I think having you at the same table for us in the very first meeting we've had you at has already clarified that it's needed and necessary. Because otherwise the communication is limited, I would think.
Well, I think you stated it very well. I probably just would be there just to validate that.
Right, no, exactly. We wouldn't put you on the spot, but you conferring that what we're saying is significant to public health, I think carries a huge validation for the legislators. And I understand that. I mean, they see me as trying to defend my program, and, you know, everybody's a little cynical, and is this really a significant danger? I know it is. Our veterinarians know that it is. I think Wildlife Services recognizes the importance, but, you know, we're all in that pool that's benefiting from that budget. To have someone from the outside, and to be honest, someone from this committee that's representing that as well, or at least concurring with us, is significant.
Certainly I have to have approval from our board of health,
Sure.
because I'm appointed by them, and the first time I heard about this committee, it was like about 2 years ago.
When we first started trying to get it reestablished, yeah.
But again, I would really say that it's very important to link health to all living things. It's my issue is really that even we do have diseases like Lyme disease and elko and ticks, and I don't really know how much we are looking at the ticks and small vectors. But truly, I think it's communities who want to keep themselves healthy. They need to keep their animals healthy.
Great. Well, we're going to continue to push on this budget and to, defend it. I don't want my comments to be taken anything less, but I think it is a struggle, and because of the urban representation that we have in the legislature, there is some concerns by some of them on whether it's relevant in terms of general fund. So we'll continue to work on that as we move forward. And then we may, and maybe what the best, and you tell us, as we start to work on the budget, before we go into the session, maybe through your position, we can request some kind of just statement from the Board of Health on the relevance of tracking animal disease and that impact, how that impacts the safety of human disease and safety, basically.
Maybe Dr. Ring really emails us regularly and what we are observing among animals. And I think really that since we started that, honestly, it gives us some time to prepare, like heads up, this is what we're seeing in animals. And sometimes, unfortunately, we can't prevent it from happening among people. But if we fail, we are really more prepared than it's just seeing it among people. So we need to track animals as a line of defense. Like you don't defend yourself at your borders. It's easier to defend yourself at other places of borders. And if you see the CDC people, they don't really track H5N1 influenza in our country. We don't really have cases. They go to China. They go to Malaysia, Indonesia, because there, if there's a case, it's easier to evaluate and treat. Because eventually, if you ignore it, it may come back. So I would really say that as a species, the humans should defend themselves at the level of animals. When things start to hurt animals, most probably it may jump the species and come to us. So we need to keep our animals healthy. I think this is very important, and every day we see it more and more through. And honestly, probably I have hundreds of emails from Dr. Ring over the years telling me about the cases identified in animals. And surprise, surprise, a year or two later, you find it among people. Get that not in our state, but again, things.
All part of the monitoring network. Then the other piece that I would draw us attention to on this one, and which is I think is why it's possible action, and and I'm going to confer to Pete after I say this to tell us where you want us to go on this. But in the first non-meeting, informational meeting that we talked about, when I was at the wool growers meeting in Reno on the 15th of November, it was my understanding, and it could have been incorrect, that the wool growers wanted to change the language in NRS 562 to increase the sheep tax for that piece, which I think is tied to this $12,906 that's budgeted, to a max of $1.50, where currently it's a max of, and I get them mixed up, is it the 18 cents or the 20 cents?
20 cents.
The 20 cents one. And then you were gonna go back and confer and where you guys are on the wool grower side on what you want me to do there. Because we did not put it in, we've already submitted our language for our policy fix that are just kind of maintenance, but I think I could still get it twisted in one direction or another, which we did not submit this, I don't believe.
Well, upon discussing with the wool growers' position is we want to raise the limit so we can
Which is
raise
what
it.
you said.
We don't want to automatically just raise it because we raised the limit.
And that would have to come through your recommendation to the Board of Ag.
Right.
From this committee, right?
And the consensus of the wool growers is, yes, they want to be able to raise the limit, but they want to be able to control when we raise it, or have a say in when we say it. And most of the wool growers are not in too much favor raising their head tax till they see a head tax on cattle of some kind.
For predator.
For predator control. That's their concern, rather we just keep raising the sheep head tax and you know, like Wyoming, the head tax is equal, the cow head tax is equal to the sheep head tax. And that's always been the Nevada wool growers' position of, let's get more people to the table. You raise the sheep tax on the few sheep that's in the state of Nevada, but you raise the head tax, you're gonna get more money. And for most cowmen, it's not that significant of an increase. Just on our own operation, if we put a head tax on cattle, it's gonna raise my head tax personally on my cattle more than it will on the sheep end of it by raising a few cents. Now, if you raise it too high, then yes, and most sheepmen also run cattle, and they're all in favor of a head tax on cattle.
So the wool growers' recommendation would be to raise to the $1.50 possible fee max. In other words, you change that language to $1.50, and then keep the recommendation currently at 20 cents per head.
And yes, until
at that level.
At that level.
Which you guys would make the recommendation on that, and then the board would have the final vote.
Exactly.
So I can go and I'll see if we can get that inserted into the omnibus bill to have the capacity, I'm trying to say it accurately the way you want, the capacity to raise it to $1.50, but the recommendation of the wool growers currently on that fee would you keep it at 20 cents.
For the time being.
Right. Okay. Can do.
Boyd, do you have any questions on that or comments?
And I don't need a motion from this committee. I can take it from the recommendation of the wool growers to the 560, or to make that change, as long as we're all in the, I just didn't want to do anything that you guys weren't for sure you wanted to do.
Right.
You guys being wool growers.
One comment I'd like to make, and this is mine and doesn't represent necessarily any other cattleman, but having a head tax on cattle, I think, would be a lot more palatable if we felt that more money could go toward raven control than there is currently. Putting more money into the pot than not being able to do no more permits for taking ravens, I think, is a major concern. And of course, we all worry about the use for coyote control also, but I think if we're talking about a major increase in taxing cattle by the head, I think we should see something that's going to have a significant impact on our futures. And that would, in my mind, raven control and raven management has a lot more to do with our future than even current coyote control.
And through this committee, you guys can basically recommend on these issues and working through the cooperative agreement that we have through Wildlife Services, how those state resources are focused and directed to I don't want to say significant, but to a certain extent. In other words, if we only have 7 staff, those 7 staff are spread out across the state, and they work in conjunction with the Wildlife Services federal employees to accomplish the overall mission, which is livestock. But we might be able to, basically working through Mark and Jack, be able to say that, we want more emphasis here, or and tell me I'm nuts, Jack. But basically, we want more emphasis here, or we want more emphasis there, and I think that you could put in a caveat if you were to raise a head tax on cattle, that those funds be targeted to a majority or to a significant level on the ravens. But the first step in that would be for us to make a case to Fish and Wildlife Service to raise the agriculture take, and then you would follow with that recommendation. So it could take a couple of years to do that. But I do think, and I think Mark said this several times, that it's possible to get more take. We just have to try to put our heads together to make a case to defend increasing the amount of ravens we're taking, or to increase the permit the Fish and Wildlife Service would give us for livestock. The problem that we have, and I hear what you're saying, Boyd, is that on the livestock side, which I think we can make a case to increase the raven take because of all the ravens that we're seeing and the increase in population alone should give us the opportunity to increase there. But we couldn't go to them and say, well, we want to increase the agriculture or livestock raven take because of the issues related to sage grouse, because they would immediately shut the door on us and say, well, that's the permit that Wildlife Commission or NDOW, that would fall under that piece. Does that make sense? I think, I'm speaking out.
It makes total bureaucratic sense.
Exactly. As a bureaucrat, I think I'm speaking out of both sides of my mouth. Does that make sense?
No, I mean, from NDOW's point of view, or from Fish and Wildlife Service's point of view, it makes perfect bureaucratic sense that this is the route you take, and you can't do this and you can't do that. But in the meantime, sage grouse numbers are decreasing, as well as livestock permittees and livestock owners, and the whole thing is just that you couldn't make this up if you tried. The situation that we're in right now, but I see that the frustration to me is that I think more funding would come for something if they had some hope that the permit or the take for livestock production on ravens would be increased. That would be something worth investing in. And I've already said it. I'm repeating myself. Thank you.
And I would then ask direct, based on this conversation, Jack, on the detail size of how that would work. Is there commonality of when ravens can be taken to defend? I mean, total numbers obviously is going to benefit. But the total numbers that we can take at 5% are not significant if you look at it even just in and amongst itself. But are there commonalities of time when ravens can be taken to defend or protect livestock that it would also be protecting sage grouse relative to either the hatching time period for sage grouse or the chick? I don't know if chick is a major thing on the raven side at all.
They coincide. There's a secondary benefit by removing something here is likely to have an effect for something else that lives here.
Right.
Cattle and sage grouse have been living together for the last century. And in a lot of these areas, especially in Elko County, even if you had cattle down on the flats where ravens live in the rocks, a lot of these are roosted at nighttime up along these edges here, that they could, prior to, during, and shortly thereafter, both the sage grouse nesting season and the calving season. But Boyd makes a very good point. I think we can do something. And again, I'm just speaking for what I've been looking at this for almost 20 years here in Nevada. And I think, it's cattlemen want to help, sheep producers want to help. We want to help. It's a numbers game, and that's a tough numbers game. And that's something that together, I always say a few good buddies can run the world. But together, with NDOW, because they're asking us to protect sage grouse in areas that are calving grounds that are also have sage grouse. But putting this all together and making the gyrations work is something that I think that could be done and should be done. But again, I think it's just a matter of trying to figure out, and see if Mark could also ask for more.
Well, and I think he's looking, in the conversations I've had with him, I think he's looking to us to help make the case to start the ball rolling, which we're totally okay with trying to do. And then also to work with Tony at NDOW to try to get the ball rolling on their side. Remind me, our permit's 1,500-ish, I believe. It's low, and NDOW's permit's like 2,500 or 3,000, somewhere in there. And if you take 5% of the current population, that's 9,550 today, just based on 5% of the 191,000. which combined were well below.
Yeah, it's a very small number, it's a joke, is what it is. You know, I don't know what it was pre-settlement time, but it's not a very big number, but it's a number, and from what I've seen, when this number goes, and we say we're gonna remove 1,500 ravens and 2,000 for sage grouse, at some point, there's always this number where somebody screams. It's like, let me put my thumb on your head for a while, then after so much pressure. And that number, when we did this before, I believe it was 2004, it was about 6,000 ravens, and then people come out of the woodwork to, hey, why are you killing so many ravens? Because even though that number sounds small in Nevada, and don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty certain that we take more ravens than probably California, Oregon, Washington, Utah, and Arizona, all these states combined. Some of these states have very, very few ravens. Or, I mean, they have lots and lots of ravens, but they take very few.
Well, and, you know, I think it draws my attention to realize that we can take 10% of the sage grouse population, an animal that's looking at being listed as endangered through hunting, yet to control an ever-expanding population, you know, and it's not an official number, I get that, but basically they look at around 5% on the ravens. It's kind of upside down.
That's the bear. I mean,
Right.
I don't know what it is, but like for coyotes, for example, you can, I think the number is like 70% per year. I mean, people often forget that these animals reproduce.
Right.
At a very good rate.
At a very drastic rate, if we're looking at 120,000 3 years ago, and we're at 191,000.
So it might be 50%. But again, I don't know what that number is, but you could probably take 50% of the population out, and it'll probably be that, you know, they fill back in.
Well, that gives a function that maybe Flint can take back as a recommendation, and maybe we would need somebody here on the committee to make that recommendation if you feel like it's necessary. You need to take a break?
Yeah.
Sorry, I wasn't looking. Okay, let me finish this up, and then we can see if you'll allow us to take a break. He's got a quick conference call he's gonna make. If you guys want to make a recommendation that has the Department of Agriculture put together information related to the increased requests from Fish and Wildlife Service on the number of permits on the ravens, is that a direction you would want to give us, be willing to give us? At this point, it kind of goes over to you guys to.
Pete, I'll pick up the mantle on that one. I would move that this committee recommend to the department or to the Board of Agriculture, I guess perhaps who we have to go through, that we recommend and look into having or encouraging or pushing the Fish and Wildlife Service to increase their permits for raven take for agriculture, for livestock, I guess.
Is there a second on that?
I'll second it.
Who was that, for the record?
That was Bevan.
Okay, Devin. It's been moved and seconded by Boyd that we recommend that we request Fish and Wildlife Services to increase the take on ravens. It was recommended by Boyd and seconded by Devin. Is there any questions on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing no opposed, so motion carried.
Just for the comment, ravens really, while I understand how they're exploding, they have very important ecological role. They are kind of the janitors of our environment. So you will be afraid if we reduce them a lot. We end up having nobody to take the trash in the environment. So it's I understand the point, but they're saying that
It's a balance.
there is a balance.
Absolutely, and I think we would concur with that. But it's funny that you're talking about them using the trash and then Fish and Wildlife Service is pushing and making recommendations that we eliminate all those trash sources completely as a way to control their population, which is extremely difficult. In other words, one of their recommendations is that we have people in the state that basically would drive the highways and pick up any roadkill on a state like this. You know, Rhode Island, yes, maybe, but a state like this, it's pretty significant. The other thing is that they're also recommending that we push or pass regulations on the dumps to basically completely cover and you know, and then the dumps or the waste management folks, of course, are like the cost and expense. Agree, but you know what I mean? It's this,
there is benefit.
balance of,
But you also have other eagles, chicken hawks, things that are not as severe impact on the stagehand that do that same job.
they're doing some of the same
They're
things.
doing, and with the raven increasing at the rate it's increasing,
It's scary.
it's scary.
Many landfills now have permits to take ravens. Because they get cited if they have too many.
How long gone recently?
You can.
We can go.
And then also when they cover bigger, they get bigger and they don't last.
I'll set next
So that's one.
You need.
No problem, I'll touch base with you afterward, because we'll be done by the time you're done.
So as we cover up landfills, we need to build more landfills. And if there's a habitat issue, landfills gobble up habitat.
It's a circle life, right?
Are there any more questions on the PARC financial review? Well, with no questions, we'll move on to item number 8 then, is that okay?
Yeah.
And that would be the discussion of the Elko redirect to sheep head tax issue. How do we move forward? Right now, we pay both sheep head tax to the Elko County. Somehow that money goes to the state budget. From the state budget, it comes back to Elko County.
Well, and we started off because we collect it for you, right?
Right.
So we send you the check,
Right.
then you send the check to Elko County, then Elko County sends us the check back, and then we put it to Wildlife Services. Where when I figured this out, here's your fun bureaucracy comment, Boyd. I'm like, well, why wouldn't we just keep it and you give us direction to transfer it to Wildlife Services? Budget 4,600. That's basically all we need to do is say the sheep tax was collected here under 40. What's your account, Flint? 4550. 4546. And then we transfer that fee fund, which I think we can, to 4,600. The only wiggle thing I've got, I know we can one way or another because it gets there either way and it's the same difference. So, I mean, it's a general fund account. I don't know if they give us any grief there, but if they do, we can basically journal voucher it from 4645 to benefit, or 4546 to benefit the 4,600 personnel staff. Because it's basically how it's going to fund the whole. So that would eliminate a fair amount of paperwork on the wool grower side. You would just have to do one letter and no deposits and no check transfers.
Right, and that also pertains to the sheep inspection, what we call the sheep inspection tax. We're paying it to you now, then we gotta go collect it. It goes to you, you give it to Elko County, we go request it from Elko County, then come back to you for permission to use it.
Yes.
And if we could just go straight to you to get our sheep inspection tax and go straight to you so you can give the tax, it would be a huge simpler process.
And, I mean, I just want to make sure that nobody has heart, you know, because I don't know how we got there from here to begin with. I don't know the history. Maybe Boyd can talk to that, but I want to make sure you guys are all good with that. We don't really even need an action item, but just before I do it, and I see Boyd shaking his head.
This is Devin. I know there's some really confusing wording in the NRS. The sense that I got is the reason reason that it goes through the big circle is because of some of that wording in the NRS. Are we gonna have to get a legislative cleanup to make what you're talking about doing work?
It's in, I'm forgetting which NRS, Jim, we're just, I don't know if we
Would
have.
be the, it would be the
omnibus
sheep
or
tax,
not,
right? So it's 562.
Yeah.
Hold on, I'll pull it up.
I know there's some pretty circular language there as far as the money trail. And so, I'm just wondering if we're gonna have to get that language cleaned up to alleviate that circle.
I thought I looked at this, and it all runs together, so I could dang sure be wrong. I thought I looked at this and we could do it.
Well, you either have to be partially drunk or very wide awake and bright when you're reading it, or it doesn't make a bit of sense, so.
Well, I'm neither, so maybe, maybe I can float in the middle here. So this is the sheep inspection, right?
No, that's us, you want PARC.
So this is referencing the PARC one? That's the same issue on the sheep inspection one, or no?
Well, the sheep inspection goes to you, somehow ends up back at Elko County, we request it from Elko County, then get permission from you to use it is what we're doing right now.
Okay, so you guys are, we send that money to you, or that money gets to you, and then you guys use it out. You send it to Wildlife Services directly.
I've never touched that, I've never seen it, we don't write a letter, we don't do nothing, that money comes straight to you, and somehow you're either sending it to Elko County and Mark requests it from Elko County, or the Nevada Wool Growers never touches or sees the PARC money.
Okay, but I'm still stuck on the sheep inspection. Let's go to,
Okay, but
let's
sheep
go back to
inspection is different than this issue, than PARC. Sheep is,
PARC is which, that's 560.
567.
7, yeah. No, there's, the statement on it is special tax is designated as a tax for the control of predator animals, period. Which means there's nothing that would eliminate or limit us from expending that money directly to Wildlife Services without going through that runaround.
and maybe you're not doing it. I'm not sure what you're doing with the PARC money.
Well, didn't you just say the PARC money is the money that we're collecting from you on the head tax piece and then we're sending to Elko?
I don't know what you do with it.
Yeah.
The sheep inspection tax.
We're still doing it because we did it this year. I mean, and I couldn't figure it out when we did it, but it went to Elko. And,
The PARC money,
yes,
and then Mark or you guys requested it back then somehow.
right.
Right, because we're getting it as a transfer from wool growers. And then if I go to 4546, I'm going to see in the livestock inspection account, expenditure Elko County 19,360.
Then
Yeah,
then it comes back to us, but it
But
comes
your
back to us.
your 19,000 now is different, that is not PARC money.
Then I've got a transfer to Elko County 18,788.
Oh, last year, the total money, yes.
Yeah.
That's the total, that's the wool growers' personal money and the PARC money. Correct?
I've got it on 2 line items and it's, I think they're saying it should be 1 from what I'm reading this. But all of that's going to Wildlife Services, right?
All PARC money, not
Not the
Fed,
wool grower.
not the wool growers. We have that in our checking account.
And so you'd spend that
that's how Nevada Wool Growers operates, that's where we get our funds.
which is also at Elko?
Yes.
So why aren't we just cutting the wool growers a check for whatever that amount of money is on the sheep inspection side? Trying to fix the whole problem all in
Right.
one.
Well, on the sheep inspection, I gotta go in reverse. We gotta request the money from you for Elko County to give it to us.
Yeah, that's it. See, me and Billy went through this with Pete, and I couldn't figure it out either. I finally just told Billy, give Pete whatever he needs. Let's
Well,
go.
we were just looking for the numbers of it. But right now, the sheep inspection tax and the PARC money, the wool growers pay it. I don't know what happens to PARC money, but I personally handle all wool growers' money. So to get my money from for the wool growers, for the sheep inspection side of it,
I'm gonna go get a fiscal guy. I'll be right back. We're gonna find out once and for all.
we request our money from you, and somehow you give the county permission, and the county cuts me a check.
Yeah.
And we go put that in the Nevada Wool Growers bank account.
We need to fix that.
Yeah.
Hey, this is Boyd, I was just curious, what do you use your sheep inspection tax money for?
We use it for research, promotion, litigation, bighorn, sage grouse, anything that's requested that we supply. Immigration issues, staff, well, there's no staff. We used to have a paid staff, now it's all volunteer. A little bit office supplies.
Okay, so you're using it as your organizational funds then, basically?
Right, the sheep inspection tax is basically the wool growers' money that we use to run our own business, and the other 20 cents is the PARC money.
So the sheep inspection tax, is that a per head deal, or where's that tax come from?
That's a per head deal. Till last year, there was 10 cents a head sheep inspection tax and 20 cents a head predator animal and rodent control tax. Once we paid that tax, I've never seen it. We don't give it to anybody. It gets paid and I don't know where it goes.
What about who checks for immunization for animals and who tests animals? Because I want to tell you about an event which occurred with cattle in Las Vegas,
Right.
where the whole farm had rabies, even was a fear it could have been transmitted to the humans.
That's been coming through Nevada Department of Ag.
Because my issue here, that there is a saving component, because if I know that the testing is done, I don't know, during the inspection or not, or the immunization was verified, I would save tons of money from giving people post-exposure prophylaxis for rabies, because that depends on where the event occurred and what is the animal who made the exposure. So several times we had this question: how do I know that the animals were vaccinated? How do I know that the animals were tested? And always we reach to the Department of Ag and we work with Dr. Wink. But the problem is that included in the inspection? I don't know, really. Or should be included?
There was a time when they called us a sheep inspection tax, but it basically is not a sheep inspection tax anymore. It's a head tax on sheep that we run our organization with. That we don't have dues, like the cattlemen have dues. Our dues are 10 cents, they are a due, but we're not paying them to the Nevada wool growers, we're paying them to the state. And however long it's been, 20 years ago, the state sheep commission, we weren't even a part of the Department of Ag. We had our own state sheep inspection and head tax and PARC, all of that stuff was completely separate, and it went to the Elko County was the lead for collecting.
Here's where this goes, and I think that may be part of when the county transferred and the county said, we don't want to collect these taxes anymore, it goes to the board, the Department of Ag will collect the head tax, and then that basically stayed where it was. And in our S 562-195, says the board, and when it says the board under the sheep tax, understand, agree, disagree, what it's referencing is the Board of Agriculture. The board, and I just lost it, may enter into a cooperative agreement with a board of county commissioners for the administration of the state sheep inspection account. Upon execution of such an agreement, the state controller should transfer all money in the state sheep account, inspection account, in the state general fund to appropriate county treasurer, and it ties general fund. There is no general fund, so it's all the fee-based stuff. And that's basically what we're doing. But I guarantee you there's no cooperative agreement on file at the Department of Ag. I think it's just been done that way for years and years. And so every year they do it the same way, and it's been budgeted the same way. Basically, there's nothing here that would prohibit because the uses of the funds, so it says the tax paid by an owner of sheep must be deposited in a state or county treasury in which the state sheep inspection account is located for the credit to that account. The money in the state sheep inspection account must be made available and dispersed by the proper state and county officials upon request of the board for the purpose provided for in this chapter. So what would need to happen to actually make this function the way it's supposed to function per statutes currently, and again the board is defined as the State Board of Agriculture, is you need to bring a request that to the board that the state sheep inspection funds be transferred to the State Wool Growers Association for the purposes of NRS 562. And then it gives specifically, which I'm sure is what you guys have been doing for years, the state inspection account, expenditures by the board for promotion and advancement and protection of sheep interests. The board may encourage, promote, advance, and protect the sheep interests of the state and may directly or indirectly by expenditure or by payment or otherwise associated form for any such purposes or objects pay annually out of the sheep inspection account for enumerated purposes not to exceed the equivalent of 10 cents of the levy assessed pursuant NRS 562.17. Which actually doesn't jive, but because it says pursuant 562.170, you can take the 18%, because whenever they changed it to 18 cents, they didn't change it in the statute below under 210, which one would assume that was the intent, which is another cleanup we need to do. So basically what I'm saying is if you you bring a request representing the wool growers and representing sheep, which is why you're on the State Board of Agriculture, that those funds each year after they're collected, which are being collected right now, be transferred to the wool growers. Basically the Department of Agriculture will cut a check directly to the State Wool Growers Association, and we don't have to send it through Elko County and around, so we can send that direct. And then on the park account, basically we can take the park monies and instead of sending them to Elko County and around the hoop and the horn to get to Wildlife Services, we can basically expend out of them for the benefit of Wildlife Services. Does that make sense for everybody? And then that cuts all that middle work, paperwork out of the mix.
Right, well that sounds good to the wool growers. And see, for some of you people that don't understand, before the wool growers became part of the Department of Ag, we was on our own.
Right.
We had to issue our own trip permits, we had to do all our own health inspections, we had to do anything that had anything to do with the sheep. The Nevada State Sheep Commission had to take care of it. Now that the Sheep Commission was dissolved and turned over to the Department of Ag, all that incoming and trip permits and health issues is all turned over to the state. Now, so really that heading, but that could be hard to change in the statute, but it's not a sheep inspection tax anymore. We used to use that money, we had to fund ourselves to go out. If somebody complained of diseases, we'd have to go out and do that. We don't do that anymore now, the Department of Ag does.
Well, I think this is something that could be redrafted and rewritten. Part of our problem is now, again, we're past the hump of being able to submit. You know, I could change a number here or there, but to go in and significantly change text but we could enter this as a policy.
Right.
One
But
that's
we don't care if
large
you call it
fix.
sheep inspection. We just know that the sheep inspection tax is our money to do business, that the Nevada Wool Growers does business under, and the PARC money is the money that the Nevada Wool Growers gives to Predator Rodent Control.
Gotcha.
That's why it's broke down into two categories, the 10-cent category and the 20-cent category.
Pete and/or Jim, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Okay, if it's, you know, if the inspection and trip permits or movement of sheep is now rolled into the Department of Agriculture, how are those interstate permits issued at this point? Are they issued by state employees? Because I've practiced as a veterinarian since 1975 in the state of Nevada, and I've never written one health inspection for interstate movement on sheep.
Usually your local, whoever your vet is, we have to get a health paper every year, or some years we have to get a health paper. Some of it's just a permit. They just want to know what sheep, if you're coming into the state, Nevada requires a health permit. We the Nevada Wool Growers requested the Board of Ag that them sheep get a health permit to come into the state. And they gotta get a permit, so the Board of Ag issues that. The states that when we ship lambs, and Arizona wants a health paper. When Arizona wants a health paper, we go to our local vet, that's whoever we've used for whatever purposes we're using, to get a health paper. I couldn't get Darla per se one time, couldn't get her, and I went to Elko Vet Clinic, and they go, oh, we don't know your livestock, so they wouldn't give me a health paper. So unless you're the vet for some sheep producer, they probably wouldn't ask you for a health paper.
But we probably, as a whole number, don't.
We don't issue a lot of health papers on sheep. It's not like cattle. Almost every load of cattle requires a health paper. There's only certain out-of-state requirements that want a health paper, so we have to have very few health papers. But in the past, when I have needed a health paper, I went to my own vet that does my work.
It's been a curiosity to me for years that I've done a lot of work for a lot of the bigger outfits that run both sheep and cattle, write their health certificates, do all their veterinary work, and have never, ever written a certificate for their sheep.
Well, it could be that wherever they've sent their sheep has never requested a health paper. But there was sometimes in Arizona, I think 3 times out of the last 35 years that I've had a health paper to ship lambs to somewhere.
So it's not a significant workload, which means that's why it makes sense to ship their the inspection fee directly to the wool growers, and then they can use it for those other things that are listed, which include promotion and all that stuff.
And then when we do get a health paper, it is kind of like the cattlemen's, we pay our own bill.
But there's cleanup that needs to happen in that sheep chapter. Anyway, I'll check with Lynn and see Ettrick and see if he's done anything in that whatsoever. And then I'll look at the park. But as it stands today, no one objects from us looking at getting more direct in those payments, correct? And cutting out the middle 3 men.
Not on our part.
Okay.
No,
Any other committee members?
it was a headache when we went through it, Jim, and it's just unnecessary.
Okay.
The way I heard it last time, Boyd was explaining it to all of us when we had this last meeting, was that that's actually how it was done even for the head tax on cattle, up until
Right. They
98
collected at
or
the
something
county.
like that, and then they changed all that. So,
And now it's a honor code system, which is something else that we need to look at, but that's a different conversation, different agenda. So, Then you gotta go to public comment, and then next meeting date.
Is there any other public comment on any of the issues? Not hearing any, how do we want to handle the next meeting date?
Do you guys wanna tie it to the next Board of Ag meeting?
I probably won't be there, so how about Christmas? Mark will be there.
Personally, on my part, I would like to have it fall in the ag meetings because
You gotta travel.
you gotta travel.
And so we'll set, you can make it as a standing day before the Board of Ag meetings if you wanted, and then we wouldn't have to have this topic even on the agenda from then on. And the Board of Ag meetings are quarterly, so basically, we meet December, March, June, August, December, March, June, August. Sometimes it varies in case something comes up, but to the largest extent, that's how we do it.
I have one question to that. Would we need to have it 4 times a year? Could we get by with it 2 times a year, 3 times a year?
Is there a minimum?
I don't believe so.
To keep your status.
Yeah, let me look.
Minimum. If I remember right, cause then, Pete, wasn't it like twice a year they used to do it?
It seems like once, before it was only once a year, the whole time I was the chairman of it. We only met once a year.
It seemed like they did it before you got the money, and it seemed like they did it after they got the money. And again, I can't.
For all the years that I was the chairman, we only done it once a year.
Maybe there isn't one if you still have your. Maybe there's another
There's
minimum.
not a requirement on number of times you meet, so that's something that you guys can determine.
Because obviously, if you haven't met since 1997, we're meeting now.
It says meetings called by the secretaries, committee secretary should call for the first meeting of the committee following the designation of its members as provided in 0.030. That's it.
What do you
guys
think,
wanna go
Boyd or
by?
Bevan? How many, do you think we need 4 meetings a year on this?
I would think 3 would be plenty, to tell you the truth, you know, I mean, I think it's a little more busy right off the bat here to reestablish the committee and what its parameters are, but I think as you get going along, 2 or 3 would be plenty, I think.
Bevan?
You still there?
Evan.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Grant, you there?
Yes, I am.
What are your guys' feelings about the number of meetings per year for this committee?
It seems to me like 2 would take care of whatever business needs to be taken care of. But that's just from what we've covered so far, that's my impression.
I agree with Bevan on that one. I don't see any other need for more meetings unless something comes up. We can always call one.
So that's how I feel.
I
How
would
do you-
say I would go with the majority. 2 is fine with me.
I think maybe if we're having problems in the beginning, like Boyd said, till we get this thing established and, going, maybe we could go with 3 and like after we got our feet on the ground, everybody knows what they're doing. I think 2 is plenty and maybe we can even move to 1, but we won't be tied to any specific number. We just go with the flow of what we think we need. If we need an extra meeting or something, we can go with that.
The next meeting for the Board of Ag would be August, or the following would be December. So do you guys want to voice in on whether you would rather wait and have one in December or have one in August?
With the sage grouse stuff that Boyd's talking about, maybe that Mark would have that information for you. And in the future, having meetings, it might be something that, hey, we don't wanna have it in the middle of lambing or fall calving or something, so it might be a seasonal deal. It might be something before you get the checks, might be a good thing to think about, and also, during the legislative period.
December would give you pre-check, pre-head tax sent out, legislative, and then you could do like a June meeting like we're doing now, would hit you there in the middle.
Well, that's,
Or is
my
that-
recommendation would be to go to the December one for our next one, and plan on a June one for the next one after that, unless we have some issues.
Oh, that's great.
And that's gonna be the day before the ag meeting?
Yeah, it'll be the day before the Board of Ag meeting.
So we'll just shoot for whatever.
Do we need a
Whatever
motion
day.
on that?
You just, guys, give me, does anyone, we can do it this way, does anyone object to the next meeting being prior to the Board of Ag meeting in December?
I have a question. In relation to all the sage grouse stuff, would there be any benefit in having the meeting in August? It seems like there's a whole bunch of other kind of key things circled around August, September with the sage grouse and the BLM. Would there be any advantage, or is it in our purview to make comments on stuff like that?
Well, and the other thing is based on what you charge us to do relative to the Fish and Wildlife Service, Raven Control, requesting an uptick in the permit, which we would request through Mark. You know, we could do that and have an August meeting that focused on that, have a December meeting that focused on those outcomes, and then focused on the legislative year coming up, or the legislative session coming up. Then go to your June meeting and then see if we need one in between. Just, it kind of goes back to so much that we're starting up the committee again. And trust me, I'm an advocate for fewer meetings, the better, but based on the sage grouse stuff that you guys are asking us to go look at, not sage grouse, but livestock permit stuff that you want us to look at, maybe we should have an August meeting and a December, and then go to June, December.
I like that plan.
Boyd?
I'm on board for sure.
We're gonna have one in August and one in December.
How about Grant?
How about Grant?
What would the date on that August meeting be?
Depends on when the Board of Ag sets it. We usually hold our Board of Ag meetings early in the month, and it's that Tuesday or Wednesday. Usually it's a Tuesday.
As soon as we get done tomorrow, Grant, with the board meeting, we'll know what that date is. We could send out an email to everybody on the committee.
Okay, I have a request, if you could kind of try and keep the Department of Wildlife in the loop on this.
Sure.
And as soon as you can get an agenda to them so that they're aware of it.
Sure.
You betcha. Well, and that may be going through you as the representative representing the Department of Wildlife through the Wildlife Commission. We'll try to notify them too, but as you get information to forward that on.
Absolutely, I do that, but
I know
in the case of this one, I knew what day the meeting was, but didn't actually see an agenda until, 2 days ago, 3 days ago?
Roger that.
And then that makes it a little tougher for Tony to plan to attend.
Absolutely. Well, and what you're speaking to is an issue that we're dealing on with both of our boards, and we've had some staff changings that are gonna help us in that endeavor.
Okay.
So is there any other questions on the next meeting date?
So as soon as we have our meeting tomorrow, then we'll send out notice of the meeting date on this one to you. Because we'll set our August meeting date tomorrow at the end of the Board of Ag meeting.
Is everybody good with that? Boyd and Bevan, you guys are all good with that?
Yeah, sounds good to me.
All right. Do we need a motion to adjourn, or are we just happy?
I think we're happy.
Well, I guess with that, we'll adjourn this meeting, and we'll see you in August.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
We'll see you on the screen tomorrow, Boyd.
Okay, sounds good.
On the next, conference,
You're gonna be out of the country? Okay.
but, it's
We'll get you the emails, everything that's going on.
Yeah, we'll let you know.
just checking. It's okay.
We can, we
All
can,
this is,
we might be able to figure out a way between now and then to get you on an internet conference. What we're gonna do that today.
no big deal. I mean, I think really on the top of common sense, so.
Yeah.
Well, we're sure happy to have you here today.
No, we appreciate it.
Appreciate it very much.
Definitely want to link up with you on our meetings prior to going into the legislative session so that you have an opportunity to take what we're looking at back to your group and see where comfort level you are. Sorry. In possibly supporting us in that endeavor at whatever level you guys obviously are comfortable with. So, no, I mean, today's been hugely informative for me, to be honest. So, it's a win-win-winner.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jack.
I should have asked for an introduction, but yeah.
You got the rest of everybody.
And everyone, this is Jerry Conrad. Jerry Conrad is my new executive assistant. She's been on the job almost, this is like 5th day or something like that, somewhere in there. And so she's gonna be, hence some of the lag time in getting agendas posted and all that kind of stuff, because we've been in a transition from Gina to her. So in the future, you'll be receiving the information from Jerry.
Okay.
Congratulations on your new job. I hope you find it both challenging and rewarding. That's the official government.
There, exactly.
It is.
Exactly.
So I want to get a copy of all the names.
Most
I know
probably
Boyd,
it's more
Just with
challenging than
Boyd.
rewarding.
Bevan,
Yeah, public service is a,
And Grant, it's Wallace.
Yeah, Grant Wallace.
Grant Wallace.
Mm-hmm.
Tasteless.
thankless, tasteless endeavor, I believe is what it is.
Still didn't see. How do you spell your name?
Double Z, A-A-double-Z-A-N, unusual name.
Oh, you gotta do it again, that went past.
A-Z-Z.
Oh, A-Z-Z. Okay.
A-M.
A-N?
M as in Mary, the rest. All these alphabetic letters are shuffled.
Is
So now can I ask what?
Southern California, isn't it?
Actually, no, it's my dad is Lebanese, my mom is Romanian. So I was fabricated in Israel, so just can imagine what a combination, and the same type of combination was applied when they have chosen my name. Because then I told the people that I-H-S-A-N as in Nancy, and the second name is M as in Mary. So no, just to be very confusing. So I just, Indian Health Services. IHS.
Perfect. Well, we sure appreciate you joining us.
I really love learning. Thank you guys.
This adds validity, what we're trying to do big time. And you can always jump in and tell us what you think, and we're a pretty open group. So,
Honestly, again, I would really say that the linkage between ag and health is a must, because not linking is really wrong, because my gosh, really, you don't really know if you would feel sorry for the animals who share the environment with humans, or you would feel sorry for humans who share the environment with the animals. The truth is really that both of them are helping and hurting each other.
Right. Well, and it's funny because we're meeting with Department of Health more in the last year than we have probably ever. And like the things that we're discovering, like always thought in the food health inspection side, that you guys had like a food disease laboratory, which then when they sat down with, was it Joe Pollock?
Yeah.
Or Pollock, I'm not sure how he says it.
Joe
Pollock. And you know, they don't have any of that capacity. And we have a complete food laboratory. And so now we're gonna partner and try to handle some of the FDA food processing inspections that health can't offer, but work more closely together, basically, and link together.
We have great ambitions and goals, but again, we bite more than what we can chew.
Right.
And
Well, and you're so huge,
really,
ginormous. I mean, Department of Health with the, especially even with the uptick on, the care deal, you guys are 6,000-7,000 staff. It's gigantic, it's ginormous.
Yeah, and honestly, was a state that ranks regularly among the 10 poorest states with health, has a lot to do.
Right.
And the good news really that we are improving our surveillance activities, that at least we started to know what the problem is.
All
And
right,
I think in order to fix something, you need to start, what is the magnitude of that problem?
right. You gotta look at
Before we
everything.
didn't even know how big it was.
Exactly. No, this is great.
Yes. Great meeting you, and again, thank you.
Very nice to meet you.
Yeah.
So on the Board of Health, you guys, does Mike Wilden then sit and direct that like it is in the Board of Ag, or is it a different structure, or
It's mostly under the chief medical officer, or
it's here under the
yeah,
director?
Dr. Green, and rarely Mr. Wilson participates. We have the group, which is appointed group, and Dr. Green is mostly the leader of the.
Cool, just curious, the different
Again, nice
connections.
meeting you.
Nice meeting you, yes, sir.
Thanks.
Nice meeting you.
Good. Glad everything, worked out.
Oh, yeah.
We sure hasn't been out here.
We could use a little more water.
Oh,
We got fantastic.
You look pretty good driving through there. You can always use more, but
We
yeah.
got beautiful grass, and probably one of the better grass you could ask for. We got irrigating water that we never even dreamed of, but during a spring with water.
Right, that's what JJ was saying, that's his biggest issue, is having fresh water for the stock.
I was gonna start doing cows yesterday and the day before, we got here today. We went and started turning waters on here a few days ago, I know that there was no water to turn on.
Right.
Well, yesterday we spent the whole day fixing water trucks and we tore them all up, climbing these mountain flats here. Now, and then mechanic, I thought at least it'd be something, we might have the help, I didn't think they'd just come back. But they are as dead now as they were last year when we quit. But yet, we've got irrigating water, like you can't believe. And I was like, how does this happen? It is, and then if you was sure JJ, a lot of his stuff, right?
Right, yeah, no, he's the same issues, I mean, he's got beautiful, condition, the ranges in, but he's having a haul water.
In several parts of the other parts of here, JJ. All of
Yeah,
JJ's
forest.
forest permits are either mixed with ours or right below us.
Because he took us to that van, was it van, one station place there where the church.
Oh,
Right, yeah, that's over where we were at.
see all of that, and then we have a lot of feeding ground right there. JJ and that one is long. Any place you was around school, great, Cowboy Rest, the old Sherman Station buildings. Some of us were hired.
Good stuff.
Yeah, I'm actually there on Saturday.
Next year, for each of you guys to come out with walking.
I'm game.
Walking through.
What do they do?
Yeah, good, because of the dog went up.
Where
Andrea doesn't think I'm tough
We
enough.
just environed.
Andrea doesn't think I'm tough enough. I can prove her wrong. That's all right.
Wear your arms out. You gotta pull.
I hear you.
You gotta pull, so you gotta have a nice.
Right, exactly. You're weird as hell on your teeth.
We had a little mix up on Saturday today at 1,800 lambs.
See you, Joe.
And we had too many of them. The next day, the first time I bring a piece of bread was Jim wants you to partake in that,
Yeah, I really have the faith on it.
this year is also an intern from the NAG school in France.
Oh, early.
Good work, director of state advantage of Mark, and this is Midwest. Nice to meet you. This is Pascal. Pascal?
Nice to
I
meet you.
think it's something that they should have in this country. He has to go 2 months 1 month in his own country, 1 month in foreign country, on an intern, free of charge. Just learn about different things and learn.
That's fantastic.
Like some of the young students and stuff in school. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. No, you're right. We've had the last 7 years, we've had 5 like this.
All right, we'll see you guys in the morning. Oh, good. We'll see you guys in
We
the
got
morning.
5 grandkids, so you can buy a ticket for each grandkid.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
We'll get you tomorrow, you guys can get a good dinner. All right. All right. Good, it's better than the lunch we had in Fallon, almost was late for the meeting. We sat there 30 minutes before they brought us a menu and 40 minutes before they brought us the food after they brought us out. I don't know, banana or one of them.
Good times.
Yeah, we'll see you guys later. Enjoy the.
bill, it says raise it up to $1.50 with board approval.
Right, and all we wanna do is change it from the 18 or 20 cents.
So allow the up to, so we're covered. You'll be able to do it the minute they change the law, we can't do it until we change the
No,
law.
I'm saying, do we submit that?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
sure we submitted.
Yeah, no, I
Okay, then
agree.
never mind, we're golden.
Yeah,
I was talking on the NRS side. That sheet, we do much adjustments on the sheet section one.
Oh, nothing.
We need to, it's too late this year, and I already told him that. If we start digging into the sheet, chapter, and it's all screwed up. It's written, basically, they took the sheep commission, cut out the sheep commission, and just put it in part of the back. Well, for example, if you did that with, dairy, council a year ago, none of it would have made sense in
Yeah.
the board, and that's pretty much what sheep. It's all about inspection, and we don't do inspections on sheep anymore. It's more of a head tax that money is sent to the wool growers to benefit, and so,
We talked about that last time. We changed only in sheep, that the money doesn't go to the county. And we changed the amount.
on the part, the sheep.
On the sheep E, but not on the, yeah, on part. I don't remember how we did it.
Yeah, we'll go back and look.
Yeah, we'll look at
It's all
it.
good.
And Bartgall sent me a note that said, you'll get one more shot to change this. We just need to approve the purpose. I'd like to argue with her, yeah, that we don't want to take those two bills out and make them separate, because I think they run the risk of the governor saying no, because he will run out of bills. He's gonna run out of executive bills. We're gonna get 3 at that point alone with nothing else. Where right now, the omnibus bill's the same. But
We
if
should
she,
talk to Corey and see what I can work, because it's a federal thing coming down, I understand it's out of our hands.
right?
We just,
Well, they didn't determine the fee, of course, at the federal level.
Right.
We did to try to cover it.
right,
And I did explain to her, I think you saw it, that with that money could be used to fund the 2 guys I think Flint has to have to pay for. So that's what we're trying to do, and that's all we're doing.
we'll get it in.
Yep.
clarify, you clear out.
Oh, no, we're not. And put the rest on.
You know, some people working on like weekends.
We do, yeah, we have kind of variable schedules.
You probably asked me, but I didn't remember, and that's not your fault. All good, all good. Just gotta sell out to the game.
I think that'll be a problem.
Pretty cool, huh?
Surprise, huh?
Yeah, we're gonna have a raffle at the well, they have their own foundations and their own groups and flags that sit on their foundation group. But we support the Warriors as well. That's our new act. That's our new actually notice that FFA Warriors right here.
Oh, here, okay.
Yeah, I was a member of those Warriors.
I was too, I remember switching to FFA, but there were so many girls on boys, I just didn't. Yeah, you're over that.
So just ask him, like, something like the foundation, our director.
I can remember that. My there is nothing.
Just like the cerebral palsy.
Well, I think, is this a byproduct? Or is it some point
ACT?
Yeah.
Yeah, they do, they have a bike shop in there, and kids.
And the big,
Yeah.
the big foundation actually, learn service plan. I don't know, I'm just saying, we're all in there, we're good, man. But my wife is the Epiphany Foundation director, service plan grant. And so I knew it kind of the life project that one didn't, I mean, explode. It's usually the engineering program, I don't know, like the last time.
Yeah,
It was
you
still
help. Yeah.
It's pretty great. No, but walk into the facilities and make yourself at home and good stuff. Very nice meeting you.
Thank you. He's a fantastic director. Kind of had a history of some less than optimal directors, and he's really knocked it out of the park.
Nice. Oh, fancy.
I will have to figure out how to turn that off.
I thought there'd be cold beer here. I knew I was going early though. It's like,
Yeah, no one better come through on that.
This room is so fancy, I just don't even know.
We'll have to tell these hooligans to keep their pizza on the table.
Yeah, and we can't have any beer. I don't know if somebody's gonna bring beer, but it's like a hard rule that we can't have alcohol on state property.
Okay.
As I was driving here, I was like, oh, I should tell somebody that.
Oh,
There goes the.
well, this will be our last meeting here.
This road is blank and everything.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
good, how are you?